Welcome to The Walking Dead. So, The Walking Dead actually came out in 2010 on a Halloween night, and they probably didn't know if it was going to make it. Robert Kirkman definitely didn't, and it did for at least 11 seasons and some spin-offs, so let's go ahead and get straight to it. We start off seeing a police car passing a bunch of cars as they're destroyed, seeming like we're already in the apocalypse. He ends up popping his trunk, getting out of the cop car to see if he's got any gas, and that is where we first time see our main character, Rick Grimes. He's a Georgia Atlanta police officer, and you're going to see his life change a lot. But, of course, Rick does not have any gas, so he has to go venturing on the road. And at this point, if you're watching this as a kid or an adult, you're just really tense, because you never know when the walker's going to come out. But as Rick's going through this path of abandoned shelters, he ends up looking under a car to see that he sees footsteps and growling. And as our main character is a police officer, of course, he goes to help, but we figure out that she's not alive. She, of course, turns around to be a walker and starts running at Rick. With that, we start the first episode off with Rick killing a child zombie. Yeah, it's starting us off right for this TV show. For the first time, we hear The Walking Dead's theme song, and it sounds amazing along with seeing all the new characters that are going to be in it. Before the apocalypse, we cut back to see Rick and one of his friends, Shane, eating burgers while they're just talking about life, because you're supposed to enjoy it even though you're a police officer and sometimes you just ain't got stuff to do. But they are on duty, and speaking of duty, dispatch calls and says they're on a high-speed chase, so they need them to help. Dang, man, not the burgers, bro. They look so good. They make it to a road they're going to pass, so they put spikes down, so as soon as they pass it, they're going to end up crashing. And to me, it seems like Rick and Shane are very trained compared to one of their police officers that they're helping. The high-speed chasing car ends up passing the spikes, ends up taking a hit and flipping. The police officers try to stop them, but they want to get out and still fight, so they have to shoot them down. As all the gunshots are passing, Rick does end up getting shot. Of course, Shane puts him down and helps Rick up. Rick tells him not to tell his wife, where he ends up getting shot again because they weren't paying attention to another person crawling out of the car. Now Rick's starting to bleed out and things are not looking too well for him. He wakes up to a blurry version of Shane trying to give him flowers and ask if he's alright. But when Rick tries to answer him, he ends up seeing that the flowers have been wilted and he's been here for a while, because little does he know he's been in a coma for a couple months. So, welcome to the apocalypse, Rick Grimes. He does what any patient that'd be left alone does, flops like a fish into the floor, takes all the IVs out of him, finds a faucet with running water to drink, and starts to get to his path in a dark, haunted-looking hospital. Yeah, I would not be walking in this. And it looks like the hospital wasn't alone, because he ends up seeing a woman with no skin left on her body. Yeah, we probably need to get out of here, especially not going to a door that says don't open, dead inside. He ends up making it to the hospital stairs, which is super dark, and uses his lighter to navigate to the exit, and finally gets his fresh moments of sunlight. Besides the couple dead bodies that he passes at the hospital. No, my bad, let me take that back, couple thousand. But as it looks like Rick doesn't really care about anything, he ends up finding a bicycle and makes his way home. He goes inside to look for his wife named Lori and his son named Carl to find nobody. And even though he breaks down, he does realize that most of their clothes are gone along with their pictures. A random family wouldn't just take that. He goes outside to take a breather when he ends up hearing a voice. It's actually a walker, but he doesn't realize that, trying to call it over, and instead gets smacked with a shovel. Yeah, by his neighbor's kid, Dwayne. He calls his dad over saying that he's got one, thinking that he's a walker, and that's where the dad, Morgan, comes up to him and asks if he's bit. So even though Morgan's about to shoot him, he passes out. He wakes up in one of the beds in Morgan's house and sees that he actually patched him up and fixed his wound, and that's where he goes to ask what kind of wound it is. Rick just says it's a gunshot, and that's where Morgan explains to him that, you can get bit by walkers and turn into them. And so far, that's really all they know about walkers. You get bit, you turn into one, that's it. Dude, they can still rip you apart, and it's not going to be something that you want to feel. Rick ends up asking how they figured this out, and it's because it happened to Morgan's wife, and she's the one wandering outside. But she's not the only walker outside, and we actually see that they're attracted to sound for the first time. Next day hits, and it seems like Morgan's here to train Rick to kill a walker. He brutally ends up beating the crap out of the walker, but he ends up taking a little bit of damage since he still has that wound. Anyways, now he knows to attack the head, but he doesn't have any weapons or anything, so now they gotta go to the police station. Somehow, lucky for him, nobody took anything from there. Guess everybody died. And not only that, it seems like they got hot running water. They all end up taking showers for the first time and last time you'll probably end up seeing it. Once they ended up getting out, they go straight to the guns and none of them been touched. He ends up giving Morgan a couple guns and Dwayne asking if he can have one, but Morgan says he has to teach him first. Now, Morgan ended up saying that there's some refugees set up in Atlanta City, so Rick wants to go check if his wife and his son's there. Morgan says that he has a couple things to do, but he will meet up with Rick, so Rick gives him a walkie-talkie and tells him that he's gonna talk to him every morning. Y'all, don't be sad, I promise y'all definitely see Morgan again. And oh yeah, you remember that police officer that didn't really know how to use his gun properly with Rick? Yeah, he died. Honestly, I've watched this show like 5 times and just watched this now, figured out that was actually him. So they go their separate ways. Morgan goes back home and pulls out a sniper to kill off some walkers, and it looks like he's about to kill his wife off. But he is struggling too, and he didn't, and I'm going to tell you right now, he's going to pay for that later on. Cut to Rick back in the police car as he's trying to walkie-talkie anybody nearby, and it actually catches some random group as we see a bunch of survivors running for the radio. A blonde-headed girl tries to answer, and this old man says to give it to the professional. And no way, it's Shane! Even though he tries to get out to him, he still can't understand him. A woman and her son wants to go out looking for the person, but Shane says they gotta stay there because they gotta have the numbers. Then we're back with Rick exactly where we were at the very beginning of the episode. He finds a truck to try to drive it, but of course it doesn't work. But he is out in the outskirts, so he did find a horse. And he rides the horse into Atlanta City, giving us the perfect picture for The Walking Dead. He gets to the city and sees a couple walkers, but obviously there's a tank, so a bunch of stuff went down. As he's pushing on, he ends up seeing a reflection of a helicopter through one of these big buildings, so he goes for it because that probably could be where his family is. Well, instead, that runs him into a horde of walkers. Rick tries to get away with the horse, but he does get stopped and they flip over the horse, flipping him too. He also drops the bag of guns and picks up his gun and runs. He hides under the tank for safety, but literally figures out that he's in the middle of both hordes, so he's about to end his life as he figures out there's a hatch right in front of him and goes in it. Yeah, the apocalypse is pretty rough. But he hears the radio going off of some dude saying, hey, if you want help, you better hurry up if you want to get out of that tank. And maybe the dude on the walkie's right, because most of the horde's going after the horse now. And that's how we end our first 1-hour season premiere episode, Days Gone By. And we're back with episode 2, starting with the other group. Yeah, Shane's group that Rick was trying to contact but couldn't get in contact with. It seems like everybody scavenges for something because there ain't no walkers around, so she goes scavenging. And by that, I mean the mom, of course, and she leaves her son as she goes by herself. Looks like she's trying to get walnuts or chestnuts, so she ends up hearing a sound. And that's where suddenly she gets attacked, but of course it's by Shane. Yeah, it seems like these two are either dating or in love. But either way, we can definitely tell she had a husband at some point, so oh well for now. Now we cut back to Rick here in the void. He tells him that he needs to jump up now while the walkers aren't looking at him and go straight to this building. But Rick really wants to go back for his duffel bag, but the person says no, he needs to go now. He follows the trail of the radio guy and ends up finding this dude named Glenn. But right now it doesn't look like it's time to introduce each other. It looks like we gotta climb up this ladder and get away from this horde. They end up making it to the top of the building, but as they end up going down the stairs to the base, it seems like there's 2 walkers in front of them. And then randomly 2 people come out and beat the crap out of the walkers dead. And that's where we end up meeting all of Glenn's group. The one holding the gun at Rick is Andrea, the black lady's named Jackie, and the black dude's name's T-Dog, and the one trying to stop Andrea is named Morales. And all of them have every reason to be pissed at Rick because look what he set onto them. Yeah, a horde of walkers. And this is the only time that walkers are actually going to use rocks and stuff to bash through walls. They obviously don't got too much time, so they're going to have to figure out some type of plan, but they end up hearing sniper rounds going off at the top of the building. Oh yeah, because there's one more member of the group, Merle Dixon. If you read the Walking Dead comics, yeah, Merle and Daryl are not going to be in it when I explain it to you later, but they are in the Walking Dead Survival Instinct game. If you want both of their backstories a little bit, I advise y'all to play it. Merle's just sitting here having fun shooting at walkers while there's a horde of walkers at the bottom, so T-Dog's not too happy. And that's where we get the first case of racism because Merle says that he's not going to listen to any, which resorts to T-Dog punching him and Merle beating the crap out of T-Dog. And everybody being scared of Merle, looks like nobody stops him until Rick stops him and puts him in handcuffs. While they are going to have to find a plan to get out of there. Because apparently they have a main group, but they're going to have to get past all these walkers to get to them. So if we can't go on the roads, might as well try the sewers. So Glenn and Morales end up going down in it, while Rick and Andrea end up watching the doors. But our group better find a way out fast because the walkers already broke through one of the windows and now they only got to break through one more. But Rick has one last plan and it's not going to be a nice one. They're gonna have to chop up some zombies and take their livers and guts and rub it all over them to hide in with the walkers so they can get to the truck. When I'm talking about this made it feel the most realistic ever, as everybody feels so inhumane, as cutting up a zombie is literally almost just like cutting up a real person. They apply all the guts and end up trying against a couple walkers, and it ends up working. As long as they don't look at them, they're pretty good. So Glenn and Rick end up walking and walking and walking as they're trying to get to the truck. But of course, unlucky for them, they got caught in a rainstorm, so their stuff is washing off. One of the walkers tries to attack Rick and they end up killing it, and they end up running. They jump the fence and end up getting onto the other side where the van is. Like, come on, you're supposed to be enjoying a rainy day, not running in it. They end up making it to the truck, but they know that the horde of walkers is going to follow them. So Rick bashes out a fast car's window out so the car alarm goes off, while Rick hurries up to go pick up the others. Andrea and all the others end up hearing the sound, so they all make a run for it, and T-Dog's got the key actually, so he has to unlock Merle. But when he goes to unlock Merle, he trips, falls, and drops the key into a drain. And T-Dog does end up chaining up the wall, so he does have a chance. And T-Dog was right on time because it's time to go now. Rick backs up to the back door to pick them all up, and they all jump in with their equipment and get out of there. And while Rick's looking at the truck, he does realize that somebody's missing, and T-Dog explains that he dropped the key. So I guess next video we're gonna figure out where their other group is. And even though they're worried about Glenn, it looks like he's having a hell of a time. And as he drives off, that's the end of episode 2. Guts. And we're back with episode 3, starting with Merle back on the building. Seems like he's just talking to himself, calming himself down, but let's be honest, I'd be going insane. Oh wait, and then he knocks into it and figures out where he's at. And as walkers are about to break down the door, Merle should have watched how he acted. Then we cut back to Rick as Morales tells him that there's even more people at the camp, while Glenn's still having an alarm going off his head in the camp. Glenn ends up making it first, and this is where I'm going to start introducing other characters. The other blonde girl that lives there is Amy, that's Andrea's sister. The wise old man back there is Dale. Then of course you got Morales and his family. And the craziest part, you know how I never said the wife's name? That's because that's Lori and Carl, Rick's family. Yeah, Shane's super surprised to see Rick, and this might start problems because we know what Shane's doing with Lori. Either way, he breaks down because he's finally reunited with his family, a lucky man. As Rick and everybody are sitting at the campfire getting reacquainted, it looks like this other dude comes up, and he is named Ed. He doesn't like to listen to the rules, and he abuses his wife. And the daughter Sophia right here. Even though he does all this stuff, the wife Carol doesn't seem to care. Which I'm not gonna lie, makes the conversation really awkward. Rick ends up waking up next morning to see everybody's getting to work. But Rick didn't sleep on an empty conscience. Yeah, he's still thinking about how he left Merle, and he tells Lori that he thinks he needs to go back. But as soon as they start talking about that, they hear the kids screaming and a walker nearby. And this isn't good because that means walkers are going to start coming towards camp. They end up beating the crap out of it, but of course decapitating it, but that's not how you kill it, until they hear a sound coming from the woods. It ends up being Daryl Dixon, and he shoots the walker in the brain, making sure that they know they have to kill it in the brain. He said he ended up finding some squirrels so he has enough food for all of us to eat, but he wants to see his brother Merle. Yeah, there's the issue with that. You know, they kind of handcuffed him and left him to a building, and Daryl, being the hillbilly he is, almost attacks Rick. Rick and Shane do disarm him, just like good old police time. So as Daryl gets up, he kind of breaks down and asks where Merle is so he can go get him. And Rick's wife, Lori, actually answers and says that Rick's going to help him go get him. And Shane is not too happy about that because numbers. And Merle's not even a respectful guy, so why are they even going for him? But just like how I like about the old Walking Dead, they're very humane with their decisions. So it looks like Glenn's gonna be tagging along. And now T-Dog's going. And while everybody's arguing, Rick does make a good point. As nearby the building that he actually left Merle at is the bag of guns that he left, so that would be a really good addition to the camp. They get Merle, they get the bag of guns, they come back, easy peasy. And the only other person I haven't explained at the camp is Jim. He's kind of just weird. He's always just there, but never talking to everybody else. But even though Shane is really disagreeing with Rick, he does love Rick, and he is here for him. So he gives him some ammo and he hopes that that's all he's gonna need. And then they go take off. They make it closer to the area, but do not go inside of the city just to make sure no walkers chase them. Well, since Shane can't, mess with Lori, he just hangs out with Carl, trying to teach him how to catch frogs. All the girls are cleaning all the clothes, and then you got Ed just watching his wife. They start having fun, laughing like any group of women, and then Ed comes over and literally shuts it down. Then Lori shuts down Shane and Carl and tells Carl to just leave and not hang out with Shane. Because little did we know, Shane actually told Lori that Rick was dead. And now she's back, she doesn't want anything to do with Shane, which is kind of insane. So Shane's about to go through his villain arc. But back with the girls cleaning, Andrea ends up standing up for Carol, and looks like Ed's being a dick. It's done with all them talking, so he tries to pull Carol away while Andrea tries to pull her back to her. And that's where his piece of shit literally smacks her. But Shane jumps in, attacks him, and starts beating the living crap out of him. After Shane beats his face red and purple, he ends up stopping and telling him never to do that crap again. While Rick, T-Dog, and Daryl end up making it to the rooftop, till all we see is a hacksaw and Merle's severed hand. Yeah, he's definitely dead. But maybe we'll find out more next episode. And we're back with episode 4. Start out with Andrea and Amy actually talking about their old trips with their dad fishing. And now they're fishing, and if this lake is actually familiar to you, it's actually in Stranger Things. Never really watched the show, but I thought it was pretty neat. Then we cut to Dale seeing that he really just watches the whole group, just checks out to make sure there ain't no walkers, and he looks in his binoculars seeing Jim just digging holes. Not just one, he's doing a lot. Back to Rick and the others seeing that Daryl's not too happy to just see Merle's arm. But even though Merle's just cold-blooded, it looks like Daryl's got some type of soft spot. So he takes his hand, and they find a blood trail, so they're gonna follow it. Daryl's theory is he either bled out and died, or he made it somewhere. They look through the area to find where the blood splattered and find a bunch of walkers dead, so maybe he did survive. And Andrea and Amy bringing a lot of fish back home. But even though everybody's there, it still seems like Jim's still digging those holes. Follow the blood to another room that has a broken window and a way down with a ladder. Either way, the trail's cold, but Daryl still wants to go for it, but Rick says they gotta go for the guns first. While Shane and the entire group confront Jim, saying that he's acting weird and scaring people. Then he almost attacks Shane, but he puts him down. Then he breaks down, and it seems like his intentions were because of his wife, who got ripped out of his hands and then ripped apart in front of him. Rick and the others make a plan to get the guns. The guns are right here. Glenn and Daryl are going to be over here because Daryl's crossbow is very silent and Daryl's very skilled in his crossbow. Then Rick and T-Dog will be set up right beside them, making sure no walkers attack. There's no time to waste, let's get straight into it. Glenn hurries for the bag to meet Daryl back in the alley. But Daryl, being a hunter and a tracker, figures out that they're being followed. So while he holds a man hostage, Glenn gets the guns and runs back. Rick and T-Dog hear the commotion, so they run over while Daryl beats the crap out of the dude. But then his friends come out of nowhere and beat the crap out of Daryl. And not only that, they punch the crap out of Glenn, take all the guns, and they take Glenn hostage along with them. They left one of their teammates, so now we're left with him. And Daryl's not too happy, but he makes sure to show Merle's gratitude. Rick ends up saying that there's a simple way they can do this. They can end up taking him back to his camp and then get Glenn back and get his guns and then leave. They find the place, but this is the first time they're going to encounter real life people, so they're going to have T-Dog set up as a sniper. They end up walking the man straight to his building and see nobody's outside. And honestly, in the apocalypse, even though you're not getting attacked, you should always have some type of people watching. Either way, he comes out and sees one of his friends being held hostage, so Rick says he wants the guns and Glenn. They try to talk about things, but the leader doesn't listen. So no more messing around, it's time to get busy. Right before everybody's about to get in a shootout, which everybody could have died either way, an old lady comes out saying that she needs help. Because they aren't thugs. The old lady even says that they've been taking care of all the old people that people left. And I understand survival of the fittest, but if you've seen a poor old lady running away from a walker, you're gonna let her die? So it literally went from us thinking these people were gonna kill everybody to them actually being very nice people. We're gonna figure out later on that people aren't gonna be like this. And when the leader of their group told them that they were gonna feed Glenn to his dogs, this is what they looked like. Anyways, Rick doesn't want them to get ambushed and he wants them to protect all the old people, so he gives them some guns. They go back for the van so they can get home, but somebody ended up taking the van, so it must have been Merle. Back at camp, Ed's doing okay, but lucky for them, Rick and the others are just about to make it on time with their guns. Sucks for y'all though, Rick. Y'all weren't in time for this lovely feast that everybody gets to destroy. It even sends Andrea's sister Amy to the bathroom. But now Ed's having PTSD about, getting beat the crap out because somebody's beating on his freaking tent. I'd be pissed too. And he opens it up to a walker. Yeah, he's our first kill of the group. And since Amy couldn't find the toilet paper, she gets bit too. Yeah, everybody was too late. They end up getting ambushed by walkers. And while everyone's fighting, Amy gets bit again because she doesn't fight. Rick and them finally get there, give everybody guns, and they end up taking out all the walkers. Now that everybody's back in the group, it looks like we lost a couple bodies. Yeah, in the middle of the night, this is not what you really want to be dealing with. But the episode ends with all the walkers dead and some of the bodies of their own people. And we're back with episode 5, starting with Rick trying to talk to Morgan off the walkie-talkie. He does not answer, and he does tell Morgan not to go through Atlantic City because it is overrun, and at the camp that they're at, they are moving from because they got hoarded. But like I said, eventually, we'll see Morgan again. Then we cut to Andrea over her sister dead, which isn't good because Amy could change at any time into a walker. but nobody's budging Andrea for a minute. Like, I'm not playing when I say it. Seems like Jackie and Jim were actually taking Walker corpses and putting them in a pile. As they're talking, Jackie ends up figuring out that Jim got bit. Screams it to the whole group and everybody circles him. And T-Dog holds him back while they check his stomach to see a bite mark. Yeah, this isn't good because no matter what, nobody's got an antidote, so he will be changing. Rick thinks that they need to go straight to the CDC and take Jim with them now to see if they can find a cure for him. But Shane thinks they need to go to Fort Knox so they can get a bunch of weapons and medical supplies. But I mean, either way, everything's a 50-50. And as y'all seen, Daryl's been putting the pickaxe into the heads of every walker. Of course, so they don't come back, because if you don't kill their head, it doesn't matter. So he gives it to Carol, and she gets to kill her husband. One of my favorite parts of the episode. Even though it's sad, you can tell she's getting stressed and all that relieving pain of all that time he's probably tormented her. Now, Andrea, her mouth is starting to move. She's starting to breathe again. It's time for you to kill her. Her eyes wake up a different color as you see the bite mark on her arm when she's trying to take a bite out of Andrea. But Andrea does end up putting her down. Way too close, you know. But today's gonna be a long day because we got a lot of bodies to bury. While this has been one of my favorite parts of season 1, showing Jim actually going what it feels like to be turning into a walker. He's slowly dying, but I feel like this is a crazy way to show it. Even though Shane's not with Rick right now, they gotta go sweep and make sure the forest is safe. Of course, 5 minutes down the road, they end up arguing. Rick says that he can't keep everybody safe. They end up going to Fort Knox, and Shane says that he's kept Carl and Lori safe for this long. And I guess that kind of hit a nerve with everybody. And they end up hearing a sound, so they split up to look for any walkers. Shane doesn't really see anybody besides Rick, but he starts pointing his gun at him. And this is the beginning stage of Shane going crazy. He cares way more about Lori and Carol than he does about Rick. He could drop him and then get back to his family. Lucky for him, nobody was watching. Oh, never mind. Time to go on with her day like nothing happened. Rick tries to call Morgan on the walkie-talkie, but he still doesn't answer and tells him that he's going to leave a map where he's at. And here's the crazy part. Morales chooses to leave because he has family somewhere else out of state, and he's going to go try to find them. So there goes Morales, and we might see him again, but it's not going to be for a long time. They make it pretty far down the road, but Jim's bones are literally feeling like glass to him. So he says he doesn't want to go to the CDC. He wants to just sit outside and think about his family. And even though everybody else wants to take him, it's his decision, and that's how it goes. Now, to me, this is the saddest moment of season 1. Like, he's literally watching all of his friends that he survived with leave. Then we cut to a screen saying wildfire active as it shows a video of some dude talking. He's a scientist and he's almost really close to figuring out how to stop the zombie apocalypse. He's testing his subject, and as he's very close to figuring out what's actually going on, he ends up getting a little spill onto his stuff. Also getting on his gloves, so now he needs to go to his contamination zone. He jumps in while it sprays him with water, then he takes off his suit to get water on him. But the lab didn't know the stuff was important in there, and it chooses to auto-explode. Yeah, so much for saving mankind, and now he doesn't know if he's gonna shoot himself or push through it. We cut to the next day, seeing our group finally making it to the CDC, with a lot of walkers on the ground, so they're gonna have to be watching their backs. We cut back to the dude that we seen on the camera, and yes, he's actually in the CDC that Rick and them are at. Rick bangs on the door saying that he's seen the camera move, so he knows somebody's in there, but nobody believes him. So when Shane pulls him back to take him away because the door's not opening, it finally opens. And I guess we'll figure out what's gonna happen in the finale right now. And we're back with the season 1 finale. I hope y'all really like this season because we're gonna be getting to season 2 very soon. Shane's actually in Rick's hospital trying to check up on him, saying that all the military is taking out people even if they're bit or not, meaning he needs to take Rick and go now or they're gonna die. Shane tries to get Rick, but Rick is too tied up to everything, so he has to leave him, putting a bed in front of his door, literally saving Rick's life. Without this, we wouldn't have a main character. Now we're inside the CDC. Then we meet the owner, Jenner, who's holding an assault rifle to make sure they're not bit. But we're all good, so we're going to an underground bunker that they made for the CDC. Not only that, he has a literal built-in computer in the CDC like a built-in Alexa. After blood shots to make sure none of them are infected, they all end up eating dinner. And this is the last time we're going to see all of them together eating dinner, which is really sad. But, you know, cheers. But of course, while everybody's enjoying everything, Shane ends up asking where all the doctors are. That's where Jenner ends up saying that they all ended up committing suicide. There was a huge amount of suicides at this place. Jenner ends up taking them to their own rooms with their own power, along with hot water. Okay, maybe I lied. One more scene with everybody in the shower. But Shane's still going through it since Lori's not there. And so is Andrea, since she lost her sister. And we cut to Lori outside of the shower, seeing that she's going to read a book right after. But Shane starts stepping up because he's drunk, and he starts showing his feelings for her. Lori doesn't want this, so Shane gets a little too aggressive as Lori ends up scratching his neck. Yeah, this is what I mean by Shane's going way too far. Next morning, everybody wakes up from their hangover and everybody notices Shane's neck, so he just says he slept on it wrong. But like everyone said, they're not here for the food, they're here for information about the walkers. So Jenner opens up the computer showing a neurobrain with all the organic wiring being all their memories. When a body ends up dying, all that organic wiring ends up turning black, showing complete death and loss of all your memories. And also it shows how the zombies start. It shows how the neuros end up coming back slowly as red, meaning when they come back, they don't have anything of their own selves. They don't remember any of their memories. They just come back and only want flesh. The test subject ends up dying as someone ended up shooting it through the head. Later on, we do figure out that that's actually Jenner's wife and he had to shoot her in the head, and she's the one talking on his computer. And even though all this is crazy, Dale has the one biggest question: why is there a timer going off? And that's where Jenner finally opens up and explains that this place is the CDC, so it will explode. Jenner did tell them if they came in, the doors wouldn't open, so this is how it's gonna be. Eventually, after them begging for their lives, he opens the door so they can finally run. Rick does say thank you, but Jenner says that there will be a day where he won't be. Then randomly he grabs Rick and tells him a secret we're not gonna know until season 2's finale. And T-Dog's wife, Jackie, is staying. So is Andrea, because they don't want to get bit, they just want to die easily. They all try to bust through the doors, but they're still stuck with these bulletproof windows. But our team starts getting to thinking, back when Rick got stuck in the tank, he actually found a grenade on that dead soldier. And this is the beginning of Carol saving everyone. They throw the grenade, busting out the window so they can get out. And since Andrea's not leaving, Dale really cares for Andrea and he's not going to let her die alone, so he's staying too. Our team makes it to the RV and all the cars so they can get out before the explosion happens. Until the last second, they see Andrea and Dale running. Everyone gets down as a huge explosion blows up, killing Jenner and Jackie. They all end up getting into their cars and get on the road. And I guess season 2, we're going to figure out where the road lies ahead. See y'all for season 2.